How? It was because I had the wrong thing turned on. You know, I try and try. I try and try. And inevitably, there's one button I don't push. Um, anyway, hi guys. Happy Monday. um, what was I saying? I don't even remember. Yeah, so Robin was saying the romper room. Yeah, so the children's music playlist, what I was saying is the children's music playlist is the one that was not getting me muted. So that's why I keep playing it. But I feel like it looks like they've gone back and unmuted some of my some of my stuff that had those other playlists. So maybe they've gotten around to noticing that those were indeed copyright free and I was allowed to use them. So, hey Jill. So you guys, I had we'll talk about the Chintz later, okay? We're going to talk about the Chintz. Okay. All right. Okay. Maybe you could sit down for a moment. Okay. Chintz. I'm so glad you're here, Molly, because I know how much you love the Chintz. So anyway, it was a not very productive weekend, but I was doing a lot of stuff. I was doing a lot of reading. I was kind of all over the place. So I did kind of a poop job of planning for today, but I started making a list and I was like, well, I have about 30 things I can tell you guys about, and that will probably take 2 hours. So anyway, yeah, what'd you guys do this weekend? Like I said, I did a lot of reading. I stitched a little bit. I worked on audio files for my Artist James project. And I actually did a lot of stuff on social media, which, I'm real bad at it. You guys know this. There might be some new folks watching, so I should probably introduce myself and, say who I am, what I do. I'm Stephanie Dyke, also known as Stephanie Cake, which, in case you did not know, is a portmanteau of my middle name and last name. My middle name is my maiden name, Caps. So when you take the CA from Caps and the KE from Dyke and you smush them together, you get cake, and everybody loves cake. So that's the short story of Stephanie Cake. I'm an artist. I'm a baby textile historian. And I come on here and we read some of the more classic quilting books about quilting. The ones that I'm not going to get a whole lot of copyright pushback on. So yeah, the ones from the beginning of the 20th century are the best. So we read those, and sometimes I read some other stuff, papers. And today I'm actually, depending on how time looks, we're going to read some more Florence Peto letters, because I got to tell you, the flow, or Peto or Peto, I keep going back and forth on how it's pronounced. I hear a lot of people pronounce it Peto, and I don't know why I don't like that. But if that's the way the woman's name was pronounced, I don't know. Anyway, Florence wrote a lot of letters, and I've read some of them here before. So I'm going to read some more because they're just really good. They're so gossipy and they're just interesting. And I have a whole just laundry list of miscellaneous things to tell you guys about. And a tiny unboxing and so on and so forth. So, Molly, you went to a quilt show. Which one? I know you're in New York, so I don't know what's going on up there this time of year. I know Jill definitely did a buttload of shopping. I got a teeny little peek at some of the wonderful things she bought to go into her inventory. And I guess there was one thing I thought I was going to get a crack at, and she was like, "Oh no, ma'am, that's going in my personal collection." I was like, dang. So I graded papers, Molly. Poo. Genesee Valley Quilt Show in Rochester. Okay. To go too crazy buying fabric. Yeah. They get you every time. You think, I'm just going to go, I'm going to look at the quilts. I'm not going to buy anything. And then you're like, well, I didn't have to pay to get into this quilt show, or maybe you did, but usually even the local quilt shows are usually not terribly expensive, or they're free. And then you go, oh, well, I have to support the local vendors. And next thing you know, you're walking out with like a $1,200 sewing machine. Oh, $5. Okay. Yeah, I know some of them do have to charge. The one that Jill and I went to recently in Lebanon, Pennsylvania, they did not charge. I was kind of surprised. Your mom did that last year. My mom sometimes does that too. I'm like, we're going in there, we're going to make a quick spin around and we're going to be done. And then she's like walking out with bags of stuff. So it's really easy to do. And, you know, they get you every time with the cute fabric and the cool notions and the, you know, the things you just can't do without. It's crazy. So on Friday, I can't remember if I mentioned it on the stream on Thursday, but on Friday I went to the museum, Baltimore Museum of Art. And again, for folks that don't know me, I am trying to make myself the official Dr. William Rush Dunton scholar. So I have been researching in his collection now for over a year. And it was really funny. The librarian archivist that I've gotten to be friends with there, she and I were talking, and we've had to reschedule this appointment a few times. You know, things on my end, things on her end. And so anyway, when I finally went down there, she's like, it's been a while. And I said, yeah, I know, but, you know, it's been like a year. And I guess the last time I was there was probably late summer. So it's probably been about 9 months. Anyway, seems like no time has passed. But I got, I read through some of his stuff I hadn't seen yet. I pulled out some scrapbooks that I had looked at before, but wanted to go back to. And I didn't make any like major discoveries. There is one thing that's missing that is kind of driving me crazy. I don't have a copy of it here at my desk, but on the front cover of his book is a wreath. And it's like a rosebud sort of wreath. And I redrew it, and I've had it printed on t-shirts. And I'm not wearing that one today. I'm wearing my other Dunton shirt today. But I've had it printed on tote bags and t-shirts and stuff to sell. And I'd assumed that I was just going to find it in his dictionary of quilt designs. And most of the stuff in the dictionary is pieced work. But he does have a few applique things in there, and I was positive I would find it in there. And I looked through roses, I looked through wreaths, I looked through flowers, and I cannot find it anywhere. And so it's interesting. I don't know where the design came from. It had to have come off of a Baltimore album quilt or some type of album quilt, because it's got that look about it. So anyway, that was actually something, it was an anti-discovery because it was kind of, it bummed me out, honestly. So anyway, that was what happened at the museum. And I did finally, was another thing that last time when I went to see the Elizabeth Talford Scott exhibit, I was not able to get this exhibition catalog, and I was finally able to get it. They had it back in stock. But I have a disappointment about Elizabeth Talford Scott's big event here in Baltimore. In case you don't know, I hope I'm not repeating myself too much for folks that have been around a lot. But this was something that in the spring, the Baltimore Museum of Art did it was like a reboot of this 25-year retrospective of Elizabeth Talford Scott, who was a pretty famous African-American quilt maker. She didn't originally come from Baltimore, but she lived in Baltimore for a very long, I think since 1940, maybe. She passed away, I think, in 2012, if I remember correctly. It's been a while, but more recently than most. And anyway, the original retrospective was in 1998 at the Maryland Institute College of Art. And so they created like a reboot of that. And that's what this is. Eyewinkers, Tumble Turds, and Candlebugs. And then part of this project, it was done with a bunch of the area colleges. And they ended up putting pieces of Elizabeth Talford Scott's work in multiple museums here and galleries here in Baltimore. And, you know, there would be like one piece of work. For example, the Walters Gallery is a museum that has a lot of, like, I don't know, like the Chinese Ming vases and things like that. Very decorative, like decorative artwork. And so their piece that they got was this one I can show you. Oh no, of course it's not going to be in here. Oh, here it is. This piece. And I believe it's called Chinese Cushion. Anyway, it was at the Walters, and it was kind of in juxtaposition, one of my favorite $300 art words, in juxtaposition with these actual antique and ancient Chinese pottery and textiles and things. So long story short, there was cool stuff going on. It was like 8 or 9 different organizations or institutions. Well, this lady got COVID and then traveled a bunch and ended up missing most of them. I was so devastated when I went down. I was going to go to the Walters on Friday after at the museum, and I got down there and I looked at the schedule for this, and actually I have that too. It was this thing that I've showed it before. So it has all these cool exhibits on the back, and I went and I looked and I went, oh my gosh, I missed the Walters literally by 2 days. I missed the Walters, and a couple of them I'd already been to, but like 3 of them, literally they had just taken them down, and I was so upset. So I still could go to the Reginald F. Lewis Museum. That one goes through July, so I'm going to still hit that one. And I think that's it. That's all that I can go to, because that's all that's left. So I'm kicking myself, but you know, I mean, what are you going to do? You get COVID. Nobody wants to see you out at museums. So anyway, that's the latest on this, and it was such a cool, event here in Baltimore. And I talked a lot about it in some previous streams. So anyway, that's the update on that. But hopefully I'll be able to get pictures or some information about the exhibit that's at the Reginald F. Lewis. That is, I believe it's 8 or 9 contemporary female African-American artists are in conversation with one of Elizabeth Telford Scott's work, one of her quilts. So, again, they're cool exhibits. So I'm fingers crossed. I'm going to get down there and get pictures or view that one. What else was I going to say about that? I just blanked out. Oh, so they take down the Elizabeth Telford Scott exhibit at the Baltimore Museum of Art, and then guess what goes right back up? Behind her is her daughter's exhibit. And it's probably been a month or 2 ago that we looked on the stream at some of Elizabeth Telford Scott's work and also Joyce Scott's work. But Joyce was interviewed this morning on the news. I was very excited to see that. And she was at the museum, and her beautiful beaded work is up, and her mixed media pieces, but there's a couple quilts in there too. So I need to get back to that. That's at the Baltimore Museum of Art. So I'll definitely share those. So one other thing happened at the museum, but I'll get back to that in a minute. But it was like one of those weird kind of, I think the universe is speaking in my ear. So I'll tell you about that in a second. Yeah, I think you guys will like it. It's kind of a neat thing. Announcements, especially since Jill's here. That reminded me. So Needlework Nights, me and Jill's thing, is we're doing it every 2 weeks on Wednesday. And it'll be, this week is our on week. So we're going to be doing embroidery scissors for Needlework Nights. And that is, again, through Quilt Nerding. It's not here, it's Quilt Nerding. And we're on YouTube. So if you search Quilt Nerding on YouTube, you'll find us. And so we're doing embroidery scissors. And all of this came about because we realized when we were reading Dawn Ronigan's book, which is Antique American Needlework Tools, that we love needlework tools. Oh yeah, you found a couple pairs. We love needlework tools. We could talk about them for hours. Other people like needlework tools. Thanks, Truid. So we were like, why don't we do some needlework nights? And so the difference here is when we were talking about Dawn's book, we were looking at antique American stuff. For our needlework nights, we're not that narrow. So things from, other countries. I would say, I don't know, Jill, I'm making an executive decision here. I would say even cool looking modern stuff would be fun to look at. So embroidery scissors, your little tiny scissors. If you have something cool feel free to send it to us. You can direct message us on all the platforms and send us stuff. You can send it to quiltnerding@gmail.com. You guys know where to find us. And if you don't, like, poke around. You'll find us. But yeah, we would love to see what you've got. And we'll share pictures of our stuff and talk about, embroidery scissors and all that jazz. It's amazing how we think we're going to just, do this little 1 hour stream and, it's not much to talk about. Well, gosh, do we have enough to even make an hour? 2 hours later, we're like, yeah, maybe we should stop talking about whatever this is. So if you're interested in the needlework tools, we got it for you. The other fun thing that, Molly, like on its surface, that statement seems kind of sarcastic, but I do know that you are absolutely speaking the truth. that is not at all like snotty and sarcastic. You are actually excited, and I am excited that you're excited. Because, but, I actually have, I don't know what Jill has, but I have some embroidery scissors. I don't have anything that's, like, worth $bazillion or anything, but I have a couple that are just really interesting looking, and I actually have some new ones that are kind of cool and interesting looking, so. When you were cool in your 20s. I know, I would hide from myself. If I had to, like, meet my youngster, my youngster self, I'd be like, oh, man, I would be rolling my eyes big time. Oh, yeah, hey, save the pieces. Definitely. Dig around and find them. You can't find your, yeah. Robin, I think that embroidery scissors are kind of like seam rippers. They sort of, they slip under cushions a lot and stuff. So, in addition to Needlework Nights, we have embarked upon another fun thing, and that's, I was kind of surprised because I kind of expected, like, maybe a few people to go, sure, yeah, I'll join you. And we kind of got a lot more response than I expected. But another thing that I sort of personally became enamored with when we read Dawn's book is one of her other books, which is The Mary Witherwax Quilt. And this is, the cover of the book is the quilt. But it's this 19th century quilt that she found, and just, she did the research, like some genealogical research on it. And I think she went up to New York where that it was originally from, or where the Witherwaxes were from. And this is another cool picture of it. It's got her name. She put her name on it. So that's why part of it is like, this is a great quilt because we know who made it. Anyway, it's all applique. And I would say you could maybe machine applique some of this stuff, but I would say this is mostly a hand project. But anyway, I decided I wanted to make, maybe not a replica of the quilt, but use some of these blocks. I mean, they're great. And, oh, yay, Robin, yours gets delivered today. Awesome. So anyway, I kind of off the hip announced that I'm going to do a 100-day project of this. And if anybody wanted to join me, and I started, and then I found out Dawn has a Facebook group already. So when she released the book, she created a Facebook group for people, and there's been some activity in there. There's people have actually made the quilt or made versions of the quilt. Anyway, all weekend, Jill and I both were getting like ping, ping, ping of people that are like, yeah, I want to participate. Yeah, I'll participate. I already have the book, or I'm buying the book. So we got a ton of people participating. So it's so exciting. If you would like to participate, it's not too late. We're not going to start until June 1st. And you can order the book, which is, it's a beautiful spiral bound book, or she has a PDF version. So I know the PDF version might be easier for some people anyway. So, yeah, check it out. I actually have a PDF download for it, and it is, to explain everything that we're going to do, it is bit.ly/witherwaxalong. And let me put that, I'll just put that in the chat. Witherwaxalong. Did I spell that right? I think so. I think that's spelled right. So, yeah, so join us if you want to. This is going to be fun. And what I've asked, part of the instructions I've put in there is, obviously we'll be doing most of our, wither wax alonging in the private Facebook group. But I had asked people, like, as they're working, and the goal is to do 1 block a day. And these are tiny blocks, they're little. You, in theory, could size them up. But, just if you keep them at this small size, I think they really are manageable. As you get more comfortable with applique, if you're already comfortable with applique, or as you get more comfortable, I really think it's very doable to do 1 a day. So that's my goal. But I'm not putting that on anybody else, right? This is kind of my goal for myself. And what I had said in the instructions is that you make this your way. If you want to do 1 block a week, if you just want to hang out and watch everybody else's stuff, that's cool. But anyway, I had asked if we can share what people are working on. We'll share here. Jill and I will share on social media, etc. So fingers crossed, June 1st, we're going to start. And hopefully, like, within that first week, we'll have lots of cool things to show. I know that, these long projects, as you go along, there's all of that gusto in the beginning. And, as we go along, people start to drop off and, oh, I got behind. I'm going to have to drop out and all that. There's nothing wrong with that. Life gets in the way. We know that. Unfortunately, our creative pursuits sometimes have to go on the back burner when life happens. But I started thinking of some things to kind of keep people engaged. So I don't have anything like really, really specifically ironed out yet, but I think that there will be also some fun. We'll do some celebrations and whatnot. So and I know obviously Molly and Robin are participating. So, yeah. And one thing I'm looking forward to is hopefully folks that want to do something that's more modern, because the reproductions or the versions that I've seen people have made, they're all very different, but they all tend to be sort of in that, I don't know, sort of traditional color palette. I think Dawn is the only one who's done a red and green recreation of it, but other folks that have bought her pattern kind of, there was one that looked like it was kind of reproduction prints, probably from turn of the century, and then there's one that somebody, I think, went to FSU or was giving a quilt to somebody who was graduating from FSU, and so they did it all in reds, because I know FSU is like that. I think reddish maroon is one of their colors. So, Dawn's also doing one in Prussian blue and brown. Interesting. So mine, I bought some shirting fabrics, their reproduction shirting fabrics when I was in California, and I think I'm going to use those as the blocks. And then I'm going to just use my massive collection of stash to do the applique. So it's going to be very scrappy for mine, but I think it would be really fun if somebody, wanted to do, I don't know, like a completely modern, like K facet, like bright K facet stuff. I think would be fun. Where did I get my shirting fabrics? From a quilt store. I would say probably if you wanted to look online, I'm trying to think, a couple of the places in Paducah, like Missouri Star, obviously. Anybody that has like the reproduction, like the turn of the century reproductions, the 1880s, etc. Oh, girl, you might do all your using Cranston prints. Wait till you see my quilt study quilt. I would like to see you use Cranston prints. That would be very fun. So yeah, I've I maybe been getting my little paws on some Cranston VIP Printworks. Oh crud, what's the other one? Peter Pan is another older one. So yeah, I've been getting my paws on some older prints, and I talked to my mom this morning, and she's going to be coming up soon. And I said, I know that you've been going through some of your fabrics and thinking about doing a de-stash. Can you de-stash me all of the the Cranstons and the VIPs? And so if you're unaware, if you're a newer quilter, Cranston, VIP, Peter Pan, Concord. Concord's another one. these are all the names of the quilt fabric companies that were really popular like in the 70s and 80s. So before we got fabrics that were like designer fabrics, today modern fabrics like Tula Pink and Kim Deal and Thimbleberries, and I don't know, I'm just like throwing names out there. There's pretty much all of the fabrics today are fabric lines that are repped by somebody or designed by somebody, like an artist or a quilter or a surface designer. And then about the other half are just in-house designs that the fabric companies come up with. But yeah, like Molly's saying, the fabric of your youth, if you are a Gen X or older, you definitely saw all that stuff. It was, in that second wave quilt revival in the 70s that came about because of the, colonial revival, bicentennial, all that stuff. That was the kind of fabric you could get for, calico print type stuff. So, hey, Kenny, je suis Gen X. So I hope you're doing well. I know you're in the middle of a move, or did you just finish this weekend? I feel like I haven't seen you in a while, and when I have, you've been busy, busy, busy. So, but anyway, that's this quilt along. So, and if you're thinking right now, like, I can't do it right now, totally fine. If you decide differently in the summer, you are always welcome to jump in with us. It's the Facebook group is always there to join. And, I'm not going to block anybody out just because they couldn't get started in the beginning. So you're done with the move and now you have to unpack. Well, yeah, glad I don't live nearby because I don't like to help friends with things like that. When you're in your 20s, you're willing to help people move for the price of, a pizza and a 6-pack. Now it's like, oh, I help you unpack your kitchen. Well, that's $500 an hour. So, okay. Now, I did my announcements. Okay, so I want to tell you about, you're working on a project for Morodem. Oh, okay. Nice. So you're working on a sewing machine for her. That is really sweet. And you have to send us pictures or post pictures so that we can see them. So I'm at the museum the other day and I was waiting because I'd requested another box. And while I'm waiting for the librarian archivist to go back and get it, I just kind of, wandered in the stacks for a minute. And they have, it's an art museum. Their library, of course, is going to be really good. And so I was over in the textiles area. Like, they have this whole section on rugs and embroideries, and their quilt section is meh. It's not great, but they're not a quilt museum. So, but I was looking through there and I'm looking to see, like, is there anything I don't have, or are there any names that I'm, not, that I'm seeing that I don't know about? And I see this name, and it's, make sure I get it right. It's Ayako Miyawaki. Ayako Miyawaki. She was a Japanese artist, and I vaguely recognized the name, but I couldn't quite place it because I was like, did she make, so I just pull the book down and I'm flipping through it and I'm like, oh, her stuff looks so cool. And actually, let me share my other screen so you guys can see this. So this is a gallery. I'm assuming it's a French gallery, as it is Galerie Frederic Masson, whatever. But I guess they repped her, or they rep her estate or something. I don't know. She passed away in 1995. So anyway, I just made a note to myself of this book. I snapped a picture of it because it was a print catalog for I want to say it was the like the Women's Museum or something. So anyway, I thought, yeah, I could look it up later and see. Well, it's a pricey catalog. But this is Friday. Saturday, I get a newsletter from Anne Wood. I don't know if you know who she is. She, let's just go to her website because she makes such cute things. And I highly recommend, if you like looking at cute things, to go to her website because these are the cute little things she makes. She has all these patterns for things, and she does this really nice, I don't know if it's weekly or bi-weekly. It might be it might be every other week that she sends her newsletter out. But anyway, it's always about like these cute things she's sewing and all the stuff she's up to. And she'll always have sort of at the end of the newsletter a link to something interesting that's kind of hand sewing related. And, sometimes it's like collage-y kind of stuff and, contemporary artists and, people on Instagram to follow, etc. Well, guess who her person this week was? It was this artist. And I'm like, this is an artist that died in 1995. Maybe she's like trending right now. I mean, you guys tell me. Did you know who she was? Have you looked at her recently? If you did know. I don't know. I mean, 1995, she passed away. Obviously, she's got a lot of work. So let's scroll down and look at that. I mean, this stuff is really cool. It's all kinds of different embroidery or appliques with embroidery. Like this one, obviously has this kind of embroidery around. But this is like, it's broderie purse, and it's just all of these very simple, shapes and things, but they're just so beautiful. Anyway, like the universe speaks to you sometimes. So I don't know why. I don't know why I'm supposed to know about her. I guess it's just because she does this gorgeous applique and I'm, in the middle of a pile of applique projects and, I guess this is it. So, when the universe speaks to you, listen, even if you don't know what it's trying to tell you. If you see anything of hers out there, let me know. I need to put out do like one of those Google, I can't remember what you call it, where Google's always looking for something for you. I need to do one of those so if something comes up with her, maybe somebody's doing a retrospective show of her and that's why she's in the zeitgeist. I don't know. But I mean, look at this stuff. It's just beautiful. So simple. And this stuff that I'm clicking through right now, this is like not even the good stuff. She has, just, I don't know, like, she did all of these studies of like food and vegetables and of course the fish. Look at this. I mean, this is like a macrame hemp rope kind of thing that she's made a fish out of. It's so clever. So, oops. But yeah, and I mean, you just look at it and it's like they're made of like one single. Hey, Susan, how are you? Yes, Okan Arts. I saw them too when I was researching her. So, anyway, and I've looked up some of her books on and it's mostly eBay where I could find them because, I mean, she's Japanese artist. She just, I know there were shows here in the U.S., but everything I could find was in Japan. So glad you're here, Susan. Long time no see. But yeah, I'm just so, her stuff is stunning. So I think that's the end. So Ayako Miyawaki. And I guess when the universe finishes telling me why I'm supposed to know about her. Okay. So what else? All right. Chintz. I was going to talk about Chintz. So much like Molly, I don't care for Chintz. It's just to me, like when I've looked at Chintz pieces or Chintz quilts, Chintz fabrics of today, to me just all look alike. They're, they have a specific color scheme, I guess. The colors are kind of muted. They have a very interesting history. Oh, awesome, Susan. I hope you're going to share with us what your exhibit is. Hopefully they'll have something online we can look at. I love that when I can look at exhibits of people I know. Yay! I'm glad you can make it. So, yeah, Chintz has just never been my jam. And Jill actually has a beautiful chintz quilt. And, you know, I looked at that because I got to look at it up close, and it was unwashed. And the thing about chintz is it has a glaze on it. So it's something that, I mean, even today's the modern chintz that you would use for like drapery and stuff, it has a glaze to make it like very smooth and kind of shiny. So one of the marks of an antique chintz is that it has never been washed. It still has its glaze. So all that stuff is very interesting. Well, typically when you start talking about quilt history, if you look at any of the old books, which we've read some of them here, they'll start out with chintz quilts, because when you talk about American quilts, the very first quilts were these chintz quilts. And, you know, they're made 1700s. They're, you know, typically from wealthy, you know, a chintz runner. we won't hold it against you. But they were made by wealthy people. They were definitely not the make-do quilts that we see later on in the, you know, throughout the 1800s, Civil War era, in the 30s, all that stuff. They were made by wealthy people because the chintz fabrics came from England or France. And in some cases, they're imported from India to, you know, by the English. You know, there's this whole history. And so if you're going to look at, you know, the whole history of American quilts, it always starts with those chintz quilts. And you know them if you've seen them. They'll be like a big white quilt that will have this like tree in the middle of it. And then these kind of disparate random flowers or roses or some peacocks, like random things. And the reason they did this is because typically the chintz fabric was small and they wanted to make the most of it. So they'd cut it out and then they'd applique it down on this, you know, bigger piece of fabric to make a quilt out of. And again, I just was nothing that excited me. So I've kind of been actively ignoring them. But I went to this retreat recently, and my dear friend Mary Kay Waldvogel did a lecture about chintz medallions, which is different than the broderie purse chintz. Chintz medallions typically, even though there's some applique, they're typically using larger elements, and in some cases are pieced. You know, the pieces in there are pieced. So I started looking at some contemporary chintz stuff, and I got a book, which I don't know if it's like the chintz book, but it's called the Chintz book. And this is actually a fairly famous book. If you're interested in reading it, it is on the Internet Archive. So you can find this, you know, for free online. But it's by a man named MacIver Percival. And I mean, if that's not like super Scottish, I don't know what is. But I, you know, in just looking to see how the book is written, he seems to be very charming and, you know, has that like, you know, United Kingdom charm about him. So I thought that this might be an interesting book to read. So I wanted to throw it out there for you guys. Would you, are you going to throw stones at me if I read about chintz? Are you, you know, is it something you're interested in? Now, I'll try to do scans of these, because the one cool thing about this book, I'm trying to be very careful because it's not in super, super duper shape. It has these gorgeous, hey Patty, how are you? It has these gorgeous plates in it. Isn't that amazing? I mean, and this book was published in 1923. So this copy has been, although the outside of it is not super duper, these plates have been kept, you know, very, very finely or whatever. Yeah. Okay, Molly, we're on the same page. It's fascinating, but aesthetically, I would not put chintz on my furniture. I would not get chintz drapery, you know. And I know, and I'm not trying to slam chintz. I've seen people that decorate with it, and it's very beautiful. Their homes are very beautiful, but yeah, it's just not my jam. So this one has actually already fallen out, so I can just hold this one up. So isn't that lovely? So pretty. Hey, Quiltish. Okay. So it sounds like we can appreciate Chintz. Okay, so this one might be coming up as our next read. And again, for folks that are new here, that was kind of really how I started this channel, was just reading these books a chapter at a time. So we'll get MacIver on the docket. And I'll scan those plates, because they really are. I mean, they're bright. But going back to what Mary Kay talked about in her lecture, were these like very specific type of chintz panels, like medallions. And I think I showed you guys a couple of reproduction ones that I bought when I was out in California, like little things. And then I got, and I might have showed these too. These are by Andover. And they're just kind of plain, right? Ooh, a rabbit or a hare or a fox or a squirrel. Yeah. See, that's the kind of stuff I would love too. And I've never seen any of that kind of stuff in chintz. I've seen it in toile. Definitely toile has those kind of images. But yeah, chintz, it's like, they're flowers, fruit baskets. There's one, and I can't remember what terminology. It was like, it wasn't like armaments, but maybe it was. It was something like, and it was, I took pictures of it. I don't have anything here at my desk, but it's the centerpiece of it, like this. Yes, birds. Definitely, they love the birds. In fact, one of them is called Defenders of the Nest. Is one of these panels. They have names. They just never fit your desired theme. Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so this armament one is the thing in the middle here. The medallion is like arrows and like one of those curly hunting horns, like and I'm trying to think what else was in it. There wasn't like a gun, but it seemed like it was that kind of like battle stuff. And it would have been in a period when there were wars going on, right? So yeah, that was the kind of imagery in these. And yeah, like flowers and birds were definitely their jam. So this one, like I said, it's contemporary. This came in 2 colorways. I do have the other colorway, but it may be going somewhere else. A brace of dead pheasants. Tish. Yes, exactly. So this one, and then I was recently, of course, trolling around for Cranston, and look what I found. It's a cat one. And this is modern, obviously, but actually I got a lot of it. I'm surprised. I thought I was only getting like a handful of panels. Maybe it only is. It might only be, I thought it was 6 panels, but I think it might be more than 6. I could be wrong. I don't know. But yeah, Molly, maybe we can talk. I'm not entirely sure that I will use all of this. So, but I think I'm going to give this a try with, cutting the different motifs. And I intended this weekend to dig out Mary Kay's book, which I think she's got some of these in here. It's Southern Quilts, Surviving Relics of the Civil War. It was a book that she and Betts Ramsey wrote. And I want to say 1998 was when they wrote the book. And so I think some of these quilts are in there. And, I'm trying to, yeah, I showed pictures of some of the ones that are actually in her collection when I came back from California recently. So anyway, we'll come back to this because, not just MacIver, but, this idea of cutting out these elements and using these elements in an unexpected way. There was a quilt where they cut these round pieces out, the ring, and then segmented the ring and then flipped the curves. So instead of being round like this, they flipped them out. And so they made this really cool, like swoopy kind of thing. So that's what I'm looking to do with this stuff, is to cut it up. And, will it get pieced together or applique or become a quilt? I don't know. But I'm going to try to do a layout of this, of snipping these up, because, there's, I don't have a whole lot of money invested in these. I certainly would never do this with an antique chintz panel or medallion, but, with these contemporary ones, and especially Cranston from the 80s or 90s, yeah, this is VIP. Cranston Printworks is the company that Molly and I are obsessed with their fabrics. You can see that, VIP. You should recognize that if you've been around for a while. So that is the lowdown and the skinny on Chintz. And I'm getting the feeling I'm not going to be disowned for getting low down and dirty with the Chintz. So, and I promised to find Mary Kay's book so that I can really reference some of these for you, so you can see what they look like. They're, if you don't know a lot about chintz, I think that these chintz medallion quilts, I think you would probably look at them and say, ugh, more chintz. But now that I know the difference between these broderie purse chintz quilts from the 1700s and early 1800s, I know the difference between those and then these medallion quilts that are later on. Or I don't think they're too much later on, but it's like a 50-year difference, I think. So anyway, we'll get back to it. I promise. Okay. So let's get into some Emma and Flo. Where we last left off, Florence had started talking to Emma Andres, and where I'm getting these from are the Quilter's Journal excerpts that are on the Quilt Index. And I apologize, I did not grab links for these, but they're really easy to find. If you go to Quilt Index and then look under the ephemera and journals, all of Joyce Gross's quilt journals are in there, Quilter's Journal. This was a newsletter that she put out in the 80s. Actually, I think it might have started in 1978 or 79. But these two issues are from the 80s. Anyway, you can look at them. They're PDFs. You can download, print, whatever. The fine folks that are affiliated with the Quilt Index do all this work for us. So, and it's free. So, yes, important to appreciate them. So Joyce published these excerpts across multiple issues of the journal. And like I said, I mean, you guys that have been around for a while and have listened to me read Florence Peto's books, kind of, I mean, she's a little bit of a so-and-so. And, when you're like that in your published books, you can only imagine what the woman is like in private letters, and she does not disappoint. So now to back up a little bit, Emma Andres was a fellow contemporary quilter, and these letters were written in the 40s. And Emma, you might remember if you've been around a while, if you watched Mary Fonz's Quilt Nerd streams, we looked at a lot of Emma Andres stuff, and Emma was one person who remade the 90 and 9 quilt, which is the one made out of little tiny blocks that a man named Charles Pratt originally made. They're I'm trying to remember what they called them. We were calling them cross-stitch quilts, and that is maybe one of the terms out there is cross-stitch quilt, but there was another tapestry quilts, I think, maybe. Anyway, they're made out of little blocks. So Emma Andres, she made a replica of that, and then, she made some other quilts, and she also had this enduring, history about her. I don't know that she was ever married, but she did end up with this big collection of research and information. There is a member of AQSG, and I'm blanking on her name right now. I think it might be Lynn Miller, who was able to purchase Emma Andres' collection from the family. And it included quilts. It included stuff from some of these other writers and historians' collections. So apparently it was a good haul. It has since been donated to the International Quilt Museum. But anyway, long story short, Florence and Emma were contemporaries. They both were, working in making quilts and researching, and Florence was, of course, publishing. So that said, let's read some gossip. Now, to keep in mind, these are all letters that Florence is writing to Emma. We don't have Emma's response other than if Florence mentions it. So February 26, 1941. The check is received and the quilt is yours. Do exactly as you please about it. So what she's saying is that she is selling quilts to people, and she sells them on layaway, essentially. And best as I can tell, and Emma's not the only person she did this with. There's a number of people, number of women that were like kind of quilt historians. And they typically were younger than Florence. And I think she kind of looked at herself as mentoring them and teaching them, and then giving them this opportunity to purchase quilts from her. And she had stuff that was like museum quality. In fact, many of her quilts went to museums. So, she let these people pay in installments, like $5 or $10 at a time. And, they corresponded, and then she would tell them, okay, my accounting says you're paid up, which I just think is funny. So anyway, do exactly as you please with it. I am so delighted to have someone own it that sees the beauty in the nice old colors and fine stitchery. Yes, it is a big one. That's one of the reasons for thinking it is pretty old. You were right. It must be nearly 100. That Victoria green began to be used shortly after the young queen came to the throne in 1837. So Victoria green, that's one I have not heard of. Unfortunately, I cannot get any history on this piece. I am sure of where it came from, but nothing else. And so there's a footnote here that the quilt is pictured in Women's Day, May 1941, in the article, This is Patchwork. It is the lemon star pictured on the maple four-poster bed. So she mentions it as the lemon star, and I'm thinking it's probably a Lemoyne star. And in Florence's book, she talks about the fact that lemon/Lemoyne are used interchangeably. I will tell you something that happened to me at the last quilt talk. There was no platform, and we, the janitor of the school and myself, this is one of her lectures, had to rig up something on which to stand my chart of designs where the audience could see them comfortably. So a small butterfly table was placed on top of a library table. Over this, I draped one of my old quilts, and onto the small table stood my chart. So far, so good. Something's telling me it's not. Now, something had to be done with me so I could reach the chart, for I have to turn the designs as I tell their stories. The janitor found a small platform, but it was not high enough, so he found another wooden stool, hardly large enough for my 2 feet. My feet are tiny, or I could never have gotten both on it, but it gave me the required height. At least she didn't fall off. I gave the whole lecture, hoping in the back of my mind that I would not get excited and do a fancy dance step off into thin air. Remember, I told you all the dignified state officers of the DAR sat in the front rows. What a scandal that would have been. But all went well. Only my feet went to sleep, and when I finished, I could barely walk. So she's full of these kind of stories. Her little chart, I'm trying to think. Jill, didn't we talk to somebody recently who has some pages from her charts? Maybe it was Mary Kay that told me. I can't remember. But essentially, Florence, when she would lecture, she had these, I don't know if they were cardboard or something, but they were on some type of easel. And I think maybe it had rings at the top. And so she had these quilt blocks mounted on them. And so she would talk about them. Then she could flip and into the next one. So just like a, like a flip chart you'd have in any kind of lecture or training. But I thought it was cool. It was this thing that she carried around with her. So yeah, maybe it was somebody I was talking to at the retreat. Maybe it was Mary Kay. But yeah, at some point, somebody told me that, some of her stuff had come up, for sale or auction or something. Okay. March 21st, 1941, Friday morning. You were right. They keep me talking and talking. It is a wonder someone hasn't popped me into the U.S. Senate, the only place where there is more talking than I do. Next week, I give 2 more lectures, and again on the 26th. So when you do not hear from me, picture me with my mouth open. Now, some of these are just excerpts. They're not the whole letter. So that was just an excerpt. April 7th, 1941. Week ago Saturday, Mr. Peto and I went to the Newark show. Now this I'm thinking is probably at the Newark Museum. It was held, oh no, maybe not. My bad. It was held in a big hotel, but it was a disappointment. Mostly buttons. Okay, so this must have been an antique show. Mostly buttons. What a wave of popularity there is for collecting buttons. There are some fascinating ones, and I enjoy looking at them. But as for collecting, what does one do with them after you get them? Well, you know what, Florence? What do you do with quilts after you get them? You display them. Not truly worthwhile, like collecting other antiques, I think. Well, Florence, I think the button collectors would say something else. I have some lovely things now for my home. Did I tell you about the old glass paperweight I bought the other day? There goes my Easter outfit. I'll have to be content to carry the paperweight in my hand. My Easter. So that was another thing. I know Florence collected glass, different types of like studio glass. And that's something I know nothing about. But I guess it's saying she can't buy her a new outfit for Easter because she bought that paperweight. So, May 9th, 1941. Some time ago, a manufacturing concern in South Carolina wrote me and asked permission to reproduce 3 designs shown in my book in their modern chenille bedspreads of the better sort. It took me unawares, for I had never viewed my things from the commercial angle, and I wrote them that I thought I had no such right to grant them the privilege of reproducing family heirlooms. But I said I would give them the names and addresses of the owners, and if they got permission from them, all right with me. I never heard any more, but in this morning's mail, I have a letter from the manufacturer and a card. And a handsome blue folding card. So, it says, this biographical sketch of Miss Peto is an updated version. The dates are correct by official documents. I'm not clear on whether that was part of the card. Yeah, I guess so. It says, oh no, that's not right. This biographical sketch, this must be something that she inserted in here, because that's not right, because this is talking about her death. She died in 1970, so that would not be on something that she's looking at herself. Okay. So, all right, so this card she received in the mail reads, authentic reproduction in chenille of the famous Barbara Frick quilt. Made in Baltimore during a revolutionary period, this spread made and displayed by special permission of present owner per plate number 1 in Florence Peto. Very interesting book, Historic Quilts. The manufacturer's letter to me says they obtained the owner's permission to use the design and have presented her with one of the new spreads. They want now to reproduce the president's wreath and want me to send them address of the owner. They tell me that they have advertised the name of my book on every label and sent out and on every spread. On every label sent out and on every spread. That ought to be worth money to me. Yours with lots of ideas and little time. Now that's interesting to me because they're saying they made this reproduction of the Barbara Frick quilt. And it says they obtained the owner's permission, but they're putting Florence's information on it. I mean, that's just really interesting. You don't get that kind of thing today without a whole lot of, contracts and stuff. Okay. So here's another one. Tuesday afternoon, June 3rd. We assume that this is probably 1941 still. For 2 days before Memorial Day, I gave out and lay flat on my back in bed. So Florence suffered from a number of health problems. Suppose I was overdoing it with all that work in such awful hot weather. Well, I was determined to join the family in our yearly pilgrimage to the cemetery. Quite a ride from New Jersey, especially in all the holiday traffic and all the parades and so forth, which held us up. So I guess that would have been Memorial Day. And she's originally from New York. So my guess is they're traveling from New Jersey to New York. Thought I stood the ride very well, but spent Saturday and Sunday again in bed. Was enough better yesterday to hobble over to town and get my hair done, because I had decided that even if I was going to die, I could not die with hair in such a mess as mine was. That's the kind of thing my grandmother would have done. I don't feel well. I might die. I better go to this beauty salon. I felt very sorry for myself. Got a new permanent, a short haircut, and now I have curls all over my pate and look as nearly like Shirley Temple as I ever will. And I don't have a great picture of Florence, but this is something I printed off. You can see what she looks like with her smart little hat. Actually, and that's her little display thing that she had the quilt box on. Friday afternoon, June 6th. Maybe it is to pay me back for the Shirley Temple hairdo that I have been ill in bed most of the time since. I've meant several times to speak of the buffalo mattress. No, I never heard of one, but should think it would be cool and clean, like horse hair. So I'm guessing this is a mattress made of buffalo fur. Were they generally made in the West during buffalo time, or were always a novelty? Here in the East, a horse is almost as scarce as a buffalo. Our mattresses are made of God knows what. I love her. All right. Thursday, a.m., June 13th, 1941. You are the fellow who is going to decipher handwriting this time, for here I am, still flat on my back, ill in bed. So this is going on like 10 days. More than 10 days she's been sick. My husband is funny. He can cook fairly well and clean up pretty good, but there won't be a dish left if I don't get around soon. He comes upstairs like a small boy after I've heard a crash and tries to say that he didn't do it. It slips from someplace or bounces without anyone near it. So help him. June 25th, 1941. Hope you do not think I've passed away. Though it is true, I have been ill ever since last I wrote. So this is going 25 days. It's like a whole month she's been sick. This week I am much better and have had 2 motor rides. Yes, you should put dates on all your quilts. Listen to me. I haven't gotten around to doing it on mine, though one was finished in 37 and another in 38. Have you ever seen pictures, rather small, made out of cut-up pieces of postage stamps? A woman who makes them had a booth in the antique show yesterday. I thought them very clever and so pretty. I bought only 2 cards. I've got an idea to make at least one pretty quilt pattern with the pieces cut from different colored stamps, just for fun. Now that was something that was interesting about Florence. She liked to make cards, and she kind of did some little paper crafts in the 30s and 40s, probably mostly in the 40s. So it's kind of interesting. And a couple of her like little kind of watercolor drawings of quilt blocks she sent as Christmas cards, and Dr. Dutton has 2 of them, and then he has another one that was printed. It was one of her quilts, like a quilt panel she had that was printed. July 9th, 1941. Indeed, typing was the first thing I noticed when I opened your letter. Good for you. Keep it up, because you will find it so much more convenient and faster for expressing your thoughts than trying to get them all down with a pen. Now, on the few social occasions when a letter written by hand seems to be indicated, I find it difficult to do. It seems slow and cumbersome, and the pens scratch and my fingers cramp and my head itches. The pen doesn't seem to get the thoughts down fast enough, and I get nervous. Well, that didn't stop her from writing a million letters in her horrible handwriting, because many of the letters that she wrote to Elizabeth Richardson, which are in another archive that I've looked at, about half of them were handwritten, and they're very hard to read. Somehow I feel discouraged today, maybe reaction from the terrible heat through which we have gone. I am discouraged at trying to sell my designs, have a sure feeling that manufacturers will use the idea and forget me. In fact, they often did that. I am discouraged, and not just to Florence, but others. And we've mentioned that before, but yeah, a whole nother topic for another time. I am discouraged because club program chairmen write in that they have no money in their budgets this winter. I get $25 for my lecture now, and to play fair with clubs who have contracted to have me, I cannot do it for less for others. Maybe it will be like last season. Everything piles up in the springtime. I am discouraged with magazines and the way they do business, and I am discouraged with Japanese beetles and the way they have descended upon my beautiful flowers. Heck, there's always a Japanese beetle in life, isn't there? Affectionately, Florence. Okay, so this was, let's see, that last one was in July, and then she didn't write for a while. October 31st, 1941. If this isn't a busy week to stop all busy weeks, I'd like to know. Not until 3 days before it opened did I know I was to have a booth at the Women's Exposition of Arts and Industries at the Grand Central Palace in New York. The national chairman of American Needlework called me up one night and begged me to come and put on a show of my quilts. It was an international show. All the foreign nations except the Axis powers, now remember this is 1941, have exhibits of things that their women make. Princess Martha of Norway has been there every day. She and our mayor, LaGuardia, opened the show. There's been a performance going on almost all of the time. Folk dancing, fashion shows, Chinese children and women singing and acting. All right, Florence. I am exhausted, but I've had a fine time. My part was to show the antique spreads, and I was allowed to exhibit my books and give out lecture and book folders. It cost me nothing and should be worth much in publicity. December 8th, 1941. The fun of Christmas is halted with the awful news over radio last night. We were visiting with friends in Brooklyn, and we all sat as if stunned when we heard the news and realized the perfidy of Japan. Who knows what may be ahead? So December 8th, 41. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is Pearl Harbor we're talking about here. If I do not get another chance before the holidays to write, this is to wish you a happy holiday season in spite of everything. My best wishes and deep affection for you. Must go and make a pudding now. We have to eat no matter how sad and worried. I think Florence may have been a bit of had a bit of a sweet tooth. Maybe I'll get out my 9-patch quilt and try to finish it. Practice what I preach. Good to keep busy when you're in trouble or worried. Monday morning, January 1942. It was a gloomy, snowy day, and I am possessed of nothing but gloomy thoughts. No time to write a friend, I suppose, but here I go. We are so worried about our beloved girl. At last, the orders have come from Washington, and she goes to Camp Meade near Baltimore on February 1st. So, quiltish, yeah. So, this is her daughter, Marjorie, and Marjorie was a nurse, and she had worked at, she worked in a children's hospital with Presbyterian Hospital in New Jersey. I think that's in New Jersey. And she never married, but she was part of this first contingent of nurses that went to the front lines, basically. And she ended up writing a book, and I think it was probably more Florence wrote the book, but it was based on the letters that Marjorie wrote home during this period. And it was interesting because the women, these nurses showed up. I mean, they were deployed, and they show up and they get there and they're on the base or wherever they were supposed to be staying. There was no place for them. They didn't have, any kind, the only bunks that were available were with the men, and in 1942 or 1941, whatever, 1942, that didn't cut it, and I mean, even today, you certainly, I'm not sure about, when troops are deployed today, I guess. I think the women have separate, changing facilities, but I don't know, what their sleeping arrangements are. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. I know some of you may have military connections and might know. But anyway, at this point, all these nurses go from the U.S. and they're met with we have no place for you to sleep, no facilities for you. You're supposed to be going to the front lines to drive ambulances and take care of the wounded, and sorry. So that is what Florence was getting letters home from Marjorie about, and it was very stressful for her. And she wrote multiple letters to lots of people about this. But luckily Marjorie did come home and she was okay, and ended up living with Florence for the rest of her life. So anyway, so she goes to Camp Meade. There, the Presbyterian Hospital unit is to get its equipment and uniforms before sailing for destination unknown. She seems cheerful and even gay about it. She is the head of the nursing staff and will have the rank of Army lieutenant, probably a captain as soon as they are established. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know how this worked. To be a nurse, she would have been educated, right? She would have at least gone to nursing school. Today, nursing school, I know, there are certain levels, like you can do, I think, a sort of an associate's degree for, to get your foot in the door with nursing. I know that, typically it's a bachelor's degree that gets you your full nursing credentials. And then you can kind of rise up higher in the ranks of the nursing profession, I think, by getting graduate studies. But back then, I just assumed nursing school was nursing school, right? And I don't know, once you turn that nursing unit into something military, I don't, did she basically, was she getting commissioned officer rank because she was educated? I don't know. I don't know how that stuff works. I'm very interested if anybody has any idea. That's just, how this stuff worked. Anyway, it is all very well to say no good worrying. I know all that and worry anyhow. Well, I suppose I must be grateful that we had nearly 2 years of joy in being together again in such a lovely new home. Somehow it will lose all interest for me if anything happens to her. Wonder if I will ever be interested in quilts again. I am fulfilling all my lecture engagements, but no more are coming in. And in fact, no apparent interest in next year's program. So, this is wartime. So I can imagine she, not only with her daughter leaving, that, she was probably not in great spirits. So that was January. Thursday morning, February 26, 1942. After I put my aunt on her train yesterday in New York, I wandered about into the stores. It was fatal, for I bought 2 new dresses and a red hat. I was feeling rather down and thought it might cheer me up to have some new clothes. Good to know Florence has, she takes part in retail therapy. We give her 2 thumbs up for that. I'm usually very conservative about what I wear on the platform, but the next group listening to me is going to have to look at a red bonnet. I hope there will be no bulls among them. Wah, wah. I think Florence would have been very good with a dad joke. March 18th, 1942. I've been ill for 3 days with an awful cold. My chest goes buzz buzz as I breathe. The American home has about 20 photos in my books of 200 drawings. And when I wrote to ask about it, okay, so she had books of drawings too. So Dr. Dunton had files of drawings. She has books of drawings. And to step back, when I was at the museum this past week, I found a couple of drawings that he had written on them that they were from Florence, that Florence had done them. I think at times she might mention something to him and he would say, well, I don't know what that looks like. And so she would send him either a drawing or some type of mock-up of it. So I'm assuming that was what those were. So American Home has about 20 photos and my books of about 200 drawings. And when I wrote to ask them about it, they said I would be hearing from them in a few days. That's 3 weeks ago. Your prayers for more and more patience. Signed, Florence. Let's see. Those are magazine articles, so we'll skip those. February 6, 1942. Well, the lightning has struck. Daughter Marjorie goes away next Tuesday. I cannot imagine my life without her gay and loving personality about. She has been such a good child, and I hope she can be of service to her country, and yet not have to undergo too many cruel hardships herself. Now, she and her husband had a son as well, and she talks about him in some of her letters, but not as much as Marjorie. And I think it's really simply Marjorie lived at home, and her son, I think he was Joe Jr., he got married and had kids. So at this point in her life, he's been married at this point, so he just doesn't show up much. But anyway, she was very close to her daughter. Sunday afternoon, February 15th, 1942. More dead than alive after a week of the most emotional upset. My daughter finally got away this morning on the 9 o'clock train for Baltimore. I did not go over to New York to say goodbye, for I felt one more goodbye would finish me. Well, that's that. I simply cannot cry anymore. My heart is so leaden you can make bullets out of it. We didn't cry when we parted here, though. We laughed. She's the grandest girl to have laughs with. Hope this war doesn't take it out of her. Friday. This must have been the same week. I was to have gone to Baltimore today to spend the weekend with my daughter, and here I am in bed coughing my head off. Too bad you can't see the fine quilting on plate number 1 in my book. There is the thinnest layer of cotton, but the quilting, though flat, is like lace or stippling. Easter Sunday morning, Presbyterian Hospital. Was so sick so long with a miserable cold, which I tried hard to take care of myself. Then I got so bad I had to have the doctor. Finally, I got so bad they had to bring me in the Teaneck ambulance. Now, in 1940s, an ambulance was not as easy as just dialing up 911. So I imagine, I don't know if you had to call the police or if you had to call the hospital. I'm thinking maybe you'd call the hospital to get an ambulance back then. I don't know. Know what's worrying me? I have an engagement to lecture to the New York Historical Society next Sunday afternoon, and my doctors know it and have promised to help me get well in time to do it. But I'm scared they are kidding me. The society has 300 engraved invitations out for the affair. April 28th. Although we have had some warm sunshine and I have been able to sit out in the garden, my progress seems very slow and I am much discouraged. I feel so guilty at being so ill and such an expense to my poor husband. What a hospital bill. I'll never be able to buy another quilt. Probably the doctor called it. June 17th, 1942. 2 ladies were here from the Spool Cotton Company yesterday. The company plans getting up a handsome folder to encourage women to make quilts. They want both quilts and designs to be shown in color. Guess they plan to sell patterns and the cotton for quilting, maybe for padding too. They may buy the designs from me. Said they would, and I may write an introduction or short sketch for the folder. Ooh. My drink is very sweaty. I have to wipe down my desk. Thursday afternoon, July 2nd, 1942. All day today, I've been trying to get that article written for the DAR magazine. The editor specified only 2 paragraphs and 1,000 words. 2 paragraphs and 1,000 words. I mean, 500 words is like a page, isn't it? Maybe 3/4 of a page. It seems like it would be more than 2 paragraphs. Anyway, I've done pretty well. 3 photographs. Oh, you know what? It's not paragraphs. It's photographs. Okay, sorry. There was a little smudge there, and I thought it said paragraphs. Okay, so 1,000 words and 2 photographs. She has 3 photographs and 1,200 words. I found the swatch of silk, which I thought lost when we moved. I speak of it in the Antiques article, but could not show it, for I couldn't find it. It is a piece of necktie silk woven in gold U.S. money, gold coins. Supposedly, the manufacturer was forbidden to sell the silk after he had made it. Woven in gold U.S. money. I wonder what that means. Was it images of gold? Or was it woven with gold? I don't know. The Spool Cotton Company seemed to really mean business and telephoned me again today about my drawings, which they mean to buy for their folder on quilting. They are coming out here again next Tuesday to see the quilts. So that was July 2nd. Monday, July 27th, 1942. One storm follows another, barely a half an hour apart. The cocker tries to hide under the sofa. She had a cocker spaniel. And I'd hide there with him if I were slim enough. Sunday morning, July 28th. An antique dealer pulled an old quilt out of a chest and said, Here's one we have been using to cover furniture, but would you care for something in this order if I come across a fine one in good condition? It turned out to be a quilt of 20 applique blocks, all different and each made by a different person and signed. When new, it must have been a handsome thing. Then my husband discovered my own grandmother's name on it, Matilda Vanderbeck. Was I excited? So I said how much and bought it for $5. It was made here in Bergen County, New Jersey, and all the names are prominent ones of early Dutch families. Names like Bogardus, Westervelt, Doremus, Brinkerhoff, and Vanderbeck. Interesting. Now, she doesn't say it's her grandmother. It's just her grandmother's name. So I'm wondering if were there multiple Matilda Vanderbecks. Sunday morning. I'm very proud to have made a big hand in the making of the new spool cotton company booklet quilts, for I think it is a lovely book. Only one mistake, and that was in a name and not my fault. We tried to be so careful. The president of the company said it was the nicest booklet they had ever gotten out, much thanks to me. Now for the kitchen artistry. My last party for the duration, unless they bring their own rations, too expensive. Now she's saying, love you, signed Florence. So it's really funny that I see this in a lot of the letters she writes. In the very beginning, she's very formal. She signs it, Mrs. Joseph Peto, Florence. And then, then it's, sincerely. And then it's with much, gratitude. And then now it's love to you. Interesting that she mentions Bergen County, New Jersey. That is one of the tours for AQSG seminar. Yes. And I think, I want to say Bergen County is like one of those places, like, I don't know. Isn't it one of those places kind of that has a lot of historical stuff? I mean, she's talking about Dutch settlers. So maybe we'll find out if we go on that tour. Let's see. November 25th, 1942, my birthday, too. This week, I've been working on the article for Miss Blondell and the needlework book. Such a time finding a photographer. It was delaying me so. Miss Blondell finally wrote and asked, where was the article? Finally, this morning, the pictures of the 2 bedrooms showing our 4-poster beds dressed in the New England clamshell and the Wild Goose Chase quilts, both of which I made myself, arrived. So I'm guessing sometimes it's you have to really read between the lines. I'm guessing that, okay, so it's the pictures of those 2. Yes, the pictures of the 2 bedrooms showing our beds. Yeah. Okay. So I'm guessing she says they arrived. So I'm wondering if she had to go like do some sort of mail order situation. I think today it's funny. My husband had some large prints made of some photographs he took. He's a amateur photographer, and I say amateur. He's actually very good for, I'm hoping maybe one day he can make some money off of his prints. But he goes to there's a Walmart near us that still has a photo lab, and he goes there and gets, big prints made for like $2. But I think back in the day, like, gosh, when I was a kid, there was the place you could go and get your prints, your pictures done, like, in a couple of hours. And that was like I can't remember the name of it. It was like a camera and film store at the mall. And then they had the equipment, whatever. But often you would take them to the grocery store or the pharmacy, right? Or those, the photomat. Did anybody ever have a photomat in their town? It was just like a little kiosk in the middle of a parking lot, almost like an ATM or something. And okay, yeah, Jill used to work for a lab. But yeah, you'd go to one of those little photo places. And I want to say there was a photomat. There was a photomat definitely in my hometown. I remember when I was little. But I want to say it's a good family friend of ours. She worked at one in California for a really long time, like throughout high school and college. So, yeah. So, you would drive through, basically, hand them your film, and then a week later or however long later, you drive back through there and get your pictures. So, but I wonder, in 1942, I guess you had to know a photographer? I don't know. Okay. So the pictures came on her birthday. June 4th, 1943. So this is a long time goes by. Our girl has been made captain. Both articles made from her letters will be published in July, Woman's Day and the American Journal of Nursing. So I think this is the point where Marjorie's writing home and Florence is starting to do stuff with her letters. And I think this is probably where the idea about, possibly writing a book kind of came up. So Sunday morning, you want to know what a cotton comforter is. Cotton converter, not cotton comforter. You want to know what a cotton converter is. Cotton converters buy the cotton goods before it is either printed, shrunk, or finished. And I believe, I may be wrong. Oh, yep. I'm not going to say it because she talks about it. Okay. So cotton converters buy the cotton goods before it is either printed, shrunk, or finished. Mr. Peto makes the designs for it and gives out the printing work and finishing work to mills, which specialize just in that. They buy this gray goods, which is, it's spelled Greig, and I think sometimes it has an E on the end, which I think it's just gray is probably French. Based on the way it's spelled. They buy this gray goods, pronounced gray goods, like the color gray, in great quantities if possible, and then plan its decoration as the market seems to demand. It is something of a gamble to guess right what the public wants. So her husband worked for was a cotton converter, I guess. So I guess that's buying the woven cotton and then distributing it to companies that are going to print on it. And I remember my mom worked in fabric stores for a long time, and I remember her talking about gray goods. And that's just it's the basic unfinished, unprinted stuff. So it's something of a gamble to guess right what the public wants. Mr. P only deals in goods specially designed for men or sportswear. No women's material at all unless for sportswear. January 18, 1944. So this is, again, like 9 months later. I finished the 9-patch quilt top yesterday. Now the border, and then I shall send it away to be quilted. It is so, so pretty. Yeah, that's right. I don't think she quilted her quilts. So, April 24th, 1944. You will be disgusted with me, but here I am back in bed again with a relapse. So this is... Yeah, I mean, this time is going by really fast. Let's see. I asked the doctor the other day when the pain was so bad how long it would take to die with this thing. He laughed. Lord, it's like the 7-year itch. You never die with it and never get rid of it. So I don't think I am comforted much. Again, after a week of awful pain, I am better again today. Did I tell you that I have an intestinal condition known as diverticulitis? And you don't get it diving, though I used to be a diver. So yes, I think in addition to all of these like colds and chest things she had, she also suffered with diverticulitis. And I think like really she was in bed a lot with, these afflictions. June 15th, 1944. I resolved not to write any more letters until I was able to sit at the typewriter. My bed scribble must have been trying. I am scared to say it because I've had so many setbacks, but I have been better this week. We'll always have to keep on this rather puppy diet, but I guess I can do it. No more glamour foods for me. Well, we've had our excitement of D-Day. I listened to the radio and wept nearly all day. Had a letter from Marjorie dated May 29th. She enclosed a photo showing marching in front of columns of nurses all dressed for invasion. Wow. So yeah, at this point, things are better. November 26, 1944. Physically, I am not very well. I get so discouraged. However, we intend to ride to White Plains tomorrow to the antique show. I suppose I will spend the day after in bed. February 13th, 1945. My friend in Ohio who gave my 9-patch out to be quilted wrote that it is done all but the binding. I am so surprised, for she told me I was 3rd on a waiting list. So this was from... So she finished the quilt January 18th, 1944, and it came back to her February 13th, 1945, and she was surprised. I think many people today would be like, where's my quilt? September 11th, 1945. Had another attack of pain inside, which she means like in her side, which sent me to bed for a while. This would be the diverticulitis. We have had such thrilling news. Margie is on her way home. She is set to sail from Marseille on September 15th. The house is being scrubbed until the paint comes off. Okay. Where am I going to put all these quilts when Marjorie comes home and fires me out of her closet? And I know in reading some of her other letters, she said that she didn't have like a very good storage system. So her quilts, and they lived in, I think, a fairly nice house in Teaneck, New Jersey. But, you know, you just think about your average family home doesn't have like some massive storage facility about it. So she would put quilts in closets and in chests and in other pieces of furniture. She had them tucked away everywhere. Sunday, December 2nd, 1945. Since Marjorie came home, this house has been in such a whirl. I've had no time for my own affairs, and indeed owe everyone I know a letter. Marjorie's welcome home party was nice. 80 guests. 80 guests! My caterer lady turned out to be a treasure and luckily took all the refreshment problem off my hands. Now let me tell you about the quilt exhibition at East Orange. It was a county fair, and there were 115 quilts on display, old and new. The exhibits were far above average quality, and it made the judging very difficult. I worked nearly 3 hours on them. So she was a judge for this quilt exhibition. Aw, such a sweet gesture to clean the house for her daughter rather than make Margie do it. I can say that Florence, I think, had housekeepers at times to help. I think they were just wealthy enough for that. But yeah, she loved her daughter Margie so much. And based on what I've read, and I have not read Marjorie's book, but it seemed like Marjorie was just a good person. Like she was just the kind of person who was very helpful and very kind. And I mean, she was a nurse. So not to say that there aren't any mean nurses, but I think that, you know, Marjorie was just like a really good person. So, yeah, I think that her mother would not have made her clean the house. Okay, so, okay, the exhibits were far above average quality, and it made judging very difficult. I worked nearly 3 hours on them. One thing is always obvious, sorry to say, the old work far excels the modern. Don't we say that today? I think that the quilt police have been there every step of the way. And honestly, I have looked at quite a few old quilts recently. And I mean, yeah, of course, there are some that are absolutely stunning. And you're like, how did any human being have time and the skill to do this beautiful thing? But I would say for the most part, a lot of antique quilts are, even when they're in super, super fine condition, are really no better made than stuff today. So I don't know. I think that's sometimes in the eye of the beholder, you know, what's good and what's not. Let's stay in there. Okay. So sorry to say, old work far excels modern. In my opinion, there was only one modern piece of real distinction. Of course, I awarded it the first prize. That is the prize for the modern class. December 29th, 1945. In the news clipping, I'm the little fatty on the left. I'm not so far either, just small, 125 pounds. Several days ago, a letter from Washington informed Marjorie that she had been promoted again. She is now a lieutenant colonel. We laugh at this. January 9th, she gets her final discharge papers. I'm the little fatty. God, Florence. All right. Let's look at some of the others. So these are the continuation of the letters. Um, okay. So this is interesting. So what she has done is she has split these up. Oh, I know, 125 pounds, and she's calling herself a little fatty. I know. Um, so these letters, she's going back through. So she hasn't made these consecutive. So we're going to go back into the 1940s, early 1940s here. Okay. So, rewind. December 27th, 1940. There may be something cooking for me in the magazine called Women's Day. That is the magazine which is published by the A&P and is on sale in all their stores. Now, did you guys know that? Women's Day was published by A&P. So A&P stores or supermarkets or grocery stores. And Women's Day, as far as I know, is still published. So I can't imagine I don't even think A&P exists anymore. Although I did know a guy who worked for A&P, and he's younger than me. So he was a graphic designer for A&P, so there definitely were A&Ps around at some point in the recent past, but I feel like there aren't any of them around here in any event. But anyway, had never heard that they published the Women's Day magazine. So that is the magazine, which is published by A&P and is on sale in all their stores. First, I was scornful of it. Did I tell you? I'm sure, of course you were, Florence. But all the biggest writers appear in it now, so I'm coming down off my high horse a little. The editors, 2 ladies, are coming out here to see me next week and see my photographs and collection of quilts. They wrote me that they had bought my book and were most enthusiastic about what I was doing for quilts and quilt makers. January 22nd, 1941. Do you get Women's Day out there in Arizona? So Emma Andres lived in Arizona. I'd forgotten about that. I'll send you a sample copy if you've never seen it. It is a nice little magazine, and I told you about offering some of my stuff to them. Yeah, you offered it, Florence, after you realized that other big writers were writing for them. Let's see. Well, last Monday, Rose Wilder Lane came out here from New York to see my quilts and talk to me about quilts. Nothing was said about purchasing an article from me. She just wanted to talk about quilts and about the series of needlework articles which the magazine will run this year. I turned myself and my house inside out for her. I'm very stupid to do this and then complain, for I am very sure she means to write the article herself, and I do not even know if I or my book are to be given credit. This happened to Florence a lot. And, nowadays, I think most Laura and Alonso's daughter. I'm talking about Little House on the Prairie. Was that meant for this chat, Druid? Laura Ingalls Wilder, yes. So my grandmother had a subscription to Women's Day. Okay, Rose is her daughter. Did I miss something? You guys may have talked about this and I missed it. Oh, Rose Wilder Lane. Oh, there. Yeah, I wonder if Rose Wilder Lane is. Would that be Laura Ingalls Wilder's daughter? It wouldn't surprise me if it was. I mean, these people were connected in ways that are amazing. Anyway, but this happened to Florence a lot. And like I said, today, can you imagine somebody like Kay Fassett and somebody just going, hey, let me come out and pick your brain about your quilts. And the next thing you know, there's some magazine article about Kay Fassett. And it was just written by a person who, didn't credit. But, it's just one of those things like you either people go in get put in a magazine or provide information for a magazine and get paid for it, or, they're a feature of a magazine. So, somebody might write an article about Kay Fassett and go interview him, and, that's okay. But if they went and talked to him about, say, color, and, you know, he used to do the knitting line, the yarn line and all that stuff. And if they went to him talking about color and then didn't credit him, don't you think he would be mad? I mean, I think any of us would. And I'm simply using him he's the first one I thought of. But yeah, this happened to Florence a lot. And I mean, it's just these magazines, you know, I think even today, well, maybe not the major quilt and sewing magazines. So I feel like those, I'm on a lot of their mailing list for writing. Even though I haven't written anything in a really long time. Most of them are they're on the very up and up. They're like, here's what we're writing about. Here's what we want from you. If you want to, you know, pitch something, here's what the pay is, all that. They're very transparent, but because back in the day, they really weren't. So anyway. So, okay. Yeah. If Rose Wilder was a writer, I'm wondering if this is her. Rose Wilder Lane. Okay. Hey, JB. AP&P went bankrupt in 2015. Yep, that sounds about right. I want to say the guy that I knew, I worked with him before then. So, yeah. That's random. Okay, so she turned herself and her house inside out. She asked me questions about things which have taken me months of research to find out. It isn't fair, but what to do? Mostly she explained that she wanted to show that women are creating designs themselves and they want to encourage that. So, yes, as a matter of fact, that was super crappy. Okay, Rose Wilder Lane. Okay, so this literally is Laura Ingalls Wilder's daughter. I never would have thought about that. And she's an influential advocate of the American libertarian movement. Interesting. So she was in there with Ayn Rand and Isabel Patterson. Huh. Wild. Oh, wow. A bit of a shyster. Okay. Interesting. Oh, I never would have guessed. Like, I would not have picked up on that. And, because I was not really, Druid, I know you I feel like you were more into that stuff than me. You're a little bit older than me, but I mean, we grew up around the same time, and I feel like I never watched Little House on the Prairie, and I never read the books. Please don't hate me. I just never got into the pioneer spirit, although I did like Holly Hobbie. Okay. February 5th, 1941. I don't even know if they know what they are trying to do there at Women's Day. Here we go. Sorry I ever wrote to them. They do not mean to buy anything from me, nor give me so much as a credit line if they use any of my quilts or designs. I went over to New York the other day and called on the chief editor, Miss Eileen Tighe. Tighe? How do you pronounce that? Tighe? Yeah, you had a collection of the books as a child. Yeah, I remember you telling me that you were a Little House person. And I need to read those books someday. I mean, so many people like my age I know were really into them, and I don't know. I feel like I missed out a little bit. Okay. So she called on the chief editor. As near as I can make out, Rose Wilder, and then she puts an exclamation point, Lane. So apparently she knows who Rose Wilder is, either now or always did. I don't know. So Rose Wilder Lane is a home service department head, and she gets paid a salary for her work, and of course is expected to write the articles which appear in her division. This little magazine has grown from a single sheet pamphlet to a really nice looking periodical. I wonder if it's Teague. Tighe. Is that Teague or Tig? I'm not sure. Was very nice, but in answer to my question about paying me for the use of my material, she said no. So I then said, but if you show my quilts and publish my designs, do I not at least get a credit line, such as from the collection of Florence Peto? She said, no, they don't do that. That would not fly today. That would just not work out today. So you see, that whole day spent with Rose Wilder Lane, when I turned myself inside out for her, is lost. Miss Teague defended herself by saying, Why, we went to you as an expert on the subject, just as we would use a library or a museum. We live and learn. For shame, Women's Day. So let's see. Prairie Fires. Oh, I'd never heard of that one. So that's about Laura and her daughter. Interesting book, debunks some of the wholesomeness of the family. Easy read differently as an adult than as a child. Worth a rereading. Interesting. JB says, what did you read as a child? What did you guys all read as a child? I read, so I've kind of have an interesting reading, trajectory. When I was really little, I read like all of the Beverly Cleary books, Ramona and all of those. And then, of course, as I became a preteen and into preteen, I was reading the, why am I blanking? Are you there? God, it's me, Margaret. What's her name? Judy Blume. Yeah, so Judy Blume, I read all of her books. And Nancy Drew, of course. And then I moved on to like science fiction-y kind of stuff and fantasy. I got really, so like right as I was starting high school, maybe 8th grade, I started reading this series. And like, I've never found anybody else who's read it. So I don't know if maybe, I don't think it was obscure though. But it was called Nine Princes in Avalon by Roger Zelazny. So that I read all of those books through high school, and there was a lot of them. And I've tried to reread them as an adult, and they're not terrible, but I was like, they weren't good. Happy Hollisters. Oh, I don't know that. Nancy Drew, Hardy Boys, Bobbsey Twins, Little Women. Yep. I get into Little Women, Little Men, Five Little Peppers. Yep. Oh, also, oh gosh, were the books that, All of a Kind Family, I think, was one. And there were a number of those. I'm trying to remember who wrote that. Yeah, there was a number of like just kind of one-offs that I think were pretty well-known children's books, or young tween-age books. Mrs. Pigglewiggle. Did anybody read Mrs. Pigglewiggle stories? Those were so cute. And I read those. Actually, I recently reread one of them. I was feeling sad, and I didn't want to read anything. I didn't want to do anything else, and I just laid in bed and read Mrs. Pigglewiggle. Those were, I think my mom introduced me to those because she had them when she was little. Yeah, Mrs. Pigglewiggle, Henry Huggins, yeah. Okay, so nonfiction by high school, Druid. Okay. I did not get into reading nonfiction books until I was an adult. I never read nonfiction because I was always kind of like, nonfiction, autobiographies, and I want to say, today I hardly ever read fiction. It has to be really, really good, very highly, highly rated for me to read a nonfiction or a fiction book now. Oh, Trixie Belden, yes. I read Trixie Belden too. Uncle Wiggily, yeah. Steinbeck. Yeah, the Steinbeck was high school for me. Yeah, The Grapes of Wrath. Well, I'll never forget reading The Grapes of Wrath. That was a really poignant one. And that's something that's interesting about all of you guys, this little community. I think so many of us have some of the same experiences throughout our life, reading some of the same books and things. Oh, bye, Susan. Have a good afternoon. Thank you so much for coming by. So yeah, and I think that's kind of part of sort of being like a like-minded community, right? You find your people because they have had many of the same experiences that you have, and that's how we jive instead of bumping heads. So, all right, let's finish with the trash talking about Women's Day. Oh, there's more. In fact, this whole issue might be devoted to her complaining about Women's Day. Yeah. All right. So March 21st, 1941. Women's Day still has 4 quilts of mine and 2 of my designs from the lecture chart, which they did not return in time for the lectures this week in spite of promises. Now, I mean, this is crappy. I mean, they treated her crappy. I would be very angry if I had lent some of my things out but needed them for a lecture and they were not, I was told they would be returned and they weren't. I would be pissed. I do not understand what all the rush is about. They telephoned me one day and asked for the 2 designs out of my chart to photograph in color. Had to have them right away. I must send them via Western Union. Here I am on top of a hill buried in the snow. I don't even know how to get a Western Union messenger here. On skis? Well then, snowshoes? Mr. Peto took the patterns in with him the next morning, and I've not heard a word since. I'll give them until the first of the week, and then I'll begin some pestering on my own account. I would have been pestering them. I would have shown up there, and I would have been like, small claims court's coming, buddy. You better give me my stuff back. Okay, March 27th, another week later. Yesterday, I had a phone call from Miss Teague of Women's Day. The article showing your quilt is planned to appear in the May number. So this must be the one from the very beginning I was reading about. Yep. This is the quilt pictured in Women's Day, May 1941. In the article, this is Patchwork, the Lemon Star, which would be the Lemoyne. And they said it photographed nicely. It seems the April number has something in it about coverlets and shows items which have been done by the Boston Index of American Design. No credits or bylines were given, and it has burned up the index. Okay, so these are more people that are cranky about them, not giving credit and byline. And see, this is the thing I don't understand. So it's now owned by Hearst, which... I mean, I would assume that they were not held by A and P for a very long period of time. I feel like by the time they went from some kind of little supermarket thing to like a nice magazine with a New York office, they were owned by some other publisher. So I'm wondering if they were owned by Hearst then. Could be. Who knows? But yes. If the Boston Index of American Design got screwed over by Women's Day... Well, either their protest or some change of policy has decided her to give me a byline, reading from the collection of Florence Peto. They seem to be trying to do things better anyway. She said my check was in the mail. Okay. So sometime between February 5th, right, is when she... Yeah, February 5th is when she was told, or thereabout, she's told, no bylines, no money. Now, by March 27th, she's got a check coming and a byline. So, Florence was a squeaky wheel. They seem to be trying to do better. She said my check was in the mail. I have not received the 4 quilts or the 2 designs. Holy Moses, this is yet another week has gone by. But I guess I will. Oh, yes, and she said they were going to let me do the next installment, applique quilts myself. Now they're talking. I don't like this editing or cooperative arrangement. Can't tell what I'm supposed to do. Oh, Florence. Let's see. April 22nd, 1942. By this time, you probably have received the May number of Women's Day and are bursting with pride at the gorgeous appearance of our quilt. Isn't it lovely on that maple 4-poster bed and in that attractive setting? Oh, this is interesting. Oh, okay. Never mind. I'm getting ready to find out what's perplexing me. So it's see page 3. The whole article is fine. Much of the material was supplied by me to Rose Wilder Lane the day she spent here, especially the Lemon Star story and the story of Lincoln's platform and the Little Giant. Okay, so this is an article. We actually have an article here about... This looks like a contemporary article, though. Okay. The Irish chain on the spool bed is mine. Doesn't show the grand quilting, but looks nice on that kind of bed just the same. The small patterns are taken from my lecture chart. The one they have misnamed the rising sun and oak leaves is my Mary Totten sunflower shown in historic quilts. So the note that Joyce puts in here is, our quilt refers to the fact that the quilt belonged to Mrs. Peto at the time the picture was taken, but she sold it to Miss Andres soon after. And so it looks like there was Lincoln's platform and the little giant quilt blocks. Something was republished about this in Women's Day in May of 1980. So, let me see how long that article is. All right, so it's a short piece. I'll read that too. So, these are terrible pictures that I have printed, but this is the Irish chain that she just talked about that belongs to her on the spool bed. And then this full page, this is the lemon quilt, or the Lemoyne Star. And it looks like it's got this, Dr. Dunton calls it Rocky Glen block, but it's got those feathery, triangle-y parts to the block. Okay, so this says that it's from Women's Day, May 1980. Although now I'm kind of wondering. Yeah, this is definitely 1980. So Lincoln's platform and the little giant quilt blocks from Women's Day, May 1980. When Stephen Douglas, the cultured aristocrat, was meeting Abe Lincoln in that series of debates that remain among the most brilliant in our history, the women of Illinois made a new patchwork pattern, Lincoln's platform, in red, white, and blue. The women of Kentucky replied with the Little Giant, honoring Stephen Douglas, also in our country's red, white, and blue. Both patterns are simple pieced work sewed in straight seams, but look at the difference between them. So that's one. That's Lincoln's platform. And then this is the Little Giant for Stephen Douglas. Right? Is it Stephen Douglas? Yeah. So Stephen Douglas. Those are both very cool. The blunt directness of Lincoln's would be too harsh if not relieved by the stripe and floral pieces. The southern pattern is all subtle grace, equally honest, but using straight seams so skillfully that the pattern seems to be in curves. And so that, I think she's talking about like this kind of curved aspect of that. Oh, okay, Arlene. So yeah, so you jumped in after I started. So what I'm actually reading right now, all of this stuff, this is from the Quilter's Journal. So Joyce Gross's publication. And you can actually find them on the Quilt Index if you've never looked for them. And I think they're all there, every single one of them. And they have them split up in a way that I think you can print like the whole article or issue. And then also I think you can get like just chunks of stuff from them. But yeah, that's what I've been reading today is these letters. But yes, I want to say that Passion for Quilts, they talked about some of the stuff in there. And also I think they got some of the, they used clips from some of these letters. So yeah, you're absolutely right. But yeah, I'm not reading that one online because copyright. Very careful about what I read in its entirety online because we don't want to get in trouble. I would hate to get shut down. Okay, so the blunt directness of Lincoln's would be too harsh if not relieved by the stripe and floral pieces. The southern pattern is all subtle grace. In a letter to Maxine Teal, now Maxine Teal is somebody that has come up as just a really interesting character. She was written about in, I'm trying to think, which book have we read recently that talked about Maxine Teal? I don't know if Jill's still here. Jill would know. Gosh, which one was it? I don't remember. Huh. It'll come to me after the stream is over. Anyway, a letter to Maxine Teal, dated June 11th, 1968, Mrs. Peto wrote, "The story about Lincoln's platform and the Little Giant is that they were made during the time of the famous debates by opposing factions. Lincoln's platform is so foursquare, plain, and uncomplicated, it seems to me characteristic of the man and his political policies. The little giant is devious, complicated, not so obvious. Did I imagine more in the designs than was intended? So, Mary Schaefer, that's right. So it was in the Mary Schaefer book that we read, written by Gwen Marsden, that, yeah, she talked, Maxine Teal is like a character that pops up in there. So the issue, Arlene, the issue that I'm reading out of right now is Summer 1980, Volume 3, Number 2. The one that I started with today was Spring 1980. And then a while back, it's been a few weeks ago at least, I read, I don't know what I did with them. I had a stack of stuff here. I must have put it away. But I started these letters and hadn't finished them. So, okay. Let's see how much more we have to go. I think there might be a lot more, and some of these are lengthy. Yeah, so there's a couple of other good stories that are here. So I'm gonna hold these. Yeah, so of the letters I'm looking at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, there's like 10 or more letters here. 11 more letters where she complains about Women's Day. So, yeah, I'll save those till next week or on Thursday maybe. So, all right, you guys. It is a little after 4 o'clock my time, so I'm gonna roll it up for right now. But yes, very cool. Yes, they definitely, between Florence, Emma Andres, Dr. Dunton, Elizabeth Richardson, her stuff is at the University of Western Kentucky University. Oh my gosh, Jill, you're right. Thank you for reminding me. Okay, I'm gonna be here for a few more minutes because I got to show you something cool. But anyway, yeah, all of these letters, they're out there, and we're able to, to snag them. So, all right, Druid, if you need to go, but I forgot to do something important that Jill reminded me of. So sometimes one reaches deeply into the budget because wonderful things happen. Well, I don't know how wonderful this is, but so there is a historian slash collector slash lecturer, was a woman named Glee Krueger, and she passed away in 2018. But oh my gosh, Jill, are you wearing this one too? And she had this amazing quilt collection, or I'm sorry, not quilt collection, just stuff collection. There were needlework tools, samplers, books. There were some textiles, I believe, at one point, but lots of needlework tools. And I mean, like, really good stuff. And so her daughter Whitney has been working on, I guess, liquidating the collection for a number of years now, or a little while. Yes, folk art. There was a lot of folk art in there. And like, Glee was really well known. Like, she wrote a bunch of books. She was consulted a lot. Our friend Dawn knew her, and was very much enamored with her. Everything I've heard, she was a wonderful person. So anyway, I've in the past bought a few little things because for the most part I can't afford stuff. But I reached deep into my little budget, and I was able to buy a couple of things because she recently announced a 50% off sale on what's remaining on the website. And you can literally go to gleekrueger.com and see. But she always sends these, these are Glee Krueger collection postcards. She sends these wonderful postcards when you buy stuff. So anyway, the other day, Jill, poo on you, tells me, oh, hey, there's a 50% off sale. And I'm like, ah. And I looked thinking, nah, there's nothing there that I'm going to get because I can't afford anything. I mean, these are like $1,000 things. Well, there was a few not $1,000 things. And they were still pricey. They were things that in the past I had looked at and been like, you know, these are cool if only I had a little more money. And so then Whitney comes out with the, well, for 50% off. So I did buy a couple things. Oh my gosh, look at these. Okay. So the first thing, and Jill, I found out how it's pronounced. So the wooden stuff that has like the printing on it, needlework tools, it's called a Mauchline. And it's spelled M-A-U-C-H-L-I-N-E, I think. Mauchline is a place in Scotland. And they were known for this woodwork stuff that they did. And the transferware was what you will often see. So I purchased this little doodad here. And you can see it's got a little building on it. And inside is a little space. And it is for a thimble. So this, and what this place, and I mean, look at this itty bitty little hook. I mean, can you guys see that? The teeny tiny little hook to close that thing. But what is special about this is it is the Normal and Agricultural Institute of Hampton, Virginia. And I'm from Virginia, and I thought this should be in my collection because I am a Virginian. It should be back in the collection of a Virginian. And then there's the pin keep that goes with it. And it'd be around the edge. So pin discs or pin keeps are the like two pieces of wood or, you know, pasteboard or some other thing with like a sort of a pin cushion stuck in the middle. So I bought this as a set. And she said that they are rare, of course. When you always say things are rare. And then, although she said it was rare after I bought it, not before. So it wasn't like she was trying to sell it. And then I bought a little hand-carved clamp. So this is my first official antique clamp. The other one I have a bird clamp, but it is, it's made out of brass and it's modern. It's a reproduction, but this is the real deal. It's a little pin cushion there on the top. And, yeah. So Cake has a clamp now. Yeah, I thought it was pretty neat. Now I had tried to buy I think it was a trainwear clamp. And Jill has one. And they're made in, you know, they're from the UK. I can't remember where, but anyway, it's another one of those little towns that does a whole lot of, you know, production of that kind of stuff. And she actually had sold it before I could get my hands on it. But yeah, this is my big purchase. That's what I have to show. So. Sorry, I meant to do it earlier to give you guys the big fanfare. So, but that was my big purchase. I'll take better pictures of them, you know, or pictures of them so you could see them better. And I will show them off because they're pretty cool. Well, with that, I am going to officially say adieu. Yes, it was a good deal. It was, yeah. I never could have afforded those if they weren't 50% off. So you guys have a wonderful evening. I hope you will join me and Jill tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Quilt Nerding for our legacy book reading. We're reading that as a group. And if you can't make that, I hope you'll see us on... Hey, Kate! I didn't know you were here. Lurker. I hope you can make it on Wednesday for Needlework Nights. That's 7 p.m. Eastern on Quilt Nerding. And if you can't make that, then I'll see you next Thursday, or this coming Thursday. And we'll finish reading those letters and... I will have something else exciting for you. Possibly getting into MacIver Percival. Because he seems like a character too. So, yeah. So, have a great day, you guys. And I will see you soon. Mwah!